Welcome to Before After Omu. Today we are going to talk about the mental health of people who join and have joined cults to help us understand the effects of Aum Shinrikyo's initiation rituals. I'm Atsushi Sakahara. I'm a filmmaker based in Kyoto, Japan. I'm a survivor in the sarin gas attack 1995 Tokyo subway systems.
And I'm Pearl Chan. I'm a film and birth worker based in Hong Kong.
Before we start today, I want to ask you to please rate and review a podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen. We work very hard on bringing you the truth about this terrible cult and Shoko Asahara. Please support us with a few minutes of your time. Thank you.
警視庁発急超管内乗車型警視庁から中央
上の措置をもって遺族を収集せんと欲し
If you are a victim, you're a victim. You're not a journalist.
そうですね、来るべきものが来てるんじゃないでしょうか。
During 1986 to 1989 was a period of exponential growth for Aum Shinrikyo, but they were still being held back by not being a religious organization. So as we talked about last time, some people who had joined Aum early on had thought of it as a yoga studio rather than a religious organization. So when the organization pivoted to becoming more religious or more serious about a religion, about being a religion, about a third of the members left. In the 3 years, 1986 and 1989, Aum gains a fortune of $4.3 million US, which seems a lot if you think about how broke Chizuo was after his pharmacy closed down. It's a pretty impressive amount to have gathered, but this is still a relatively small amount compared to what they do in the next 6 years after they become officially recognized. But right now we're looking at how they made this $4.3 million, and the majority of this money came from their followers purchasing services and products that Shoko Asahara and his team provided.
One service Shoko Asahara would provide was Shakti Pat. We covered this in episode 8, but briefly. Asahara would place his thumb on the follower's third eye, on the forehead, between the eyes, and that would be to wake up the Kundalini, the divine energy coiled in one's tailbone. Also in episode 8, we talked about how we would spend hours waking up people's Kundalini, and the effects of that experience would have on followers. He would go around to the different branches and perform Shakti Pat.
So if you remember from episode 8, the scenario we had set up, the follower was completely enamored with the experience of having their kundalini woken up. So you can sort of see the effect that would have on people who, bought the service. And so it was a really popular service, right? And so in December 1986, while he was performing Shaktipat, he passed out of exhaustion. And after that, they restructured the entire thing, and he would charge $500 US for one session of Shaktipat. And Ishii Hisako would stand there with the stopwatch and tell him when exactly 10 minutes were up. So, much shorter and expensive sessions, because these sessions worked for the followers. They were effective in persuading followers to stay with Aum, but they were also really exhausting for Asahara, so he came up with this much more efficient way of doing it. And by 1988 August, Asahara had performed thousands of Shaktipats, and he actually stopped performing them. Instead, he started delegating it to his closest followers, including Ishii Hisako. So if you take the number of Shaktipats performed as 1,000, and then he's making $500 per Shaktipat, he's made about $500,000 performing Shaktipats. If you take that into account, then he's essentially spent 10,000 minutes performing Shaktipats, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually 167 hours, which is 21 working days. 8-hour days, 21 of them, $500,000.
It's a very good money machine. Originally, Shakti Pat was an initiation ritual to initiate new believers, but soon they diversified the initiation rituals and simplified Shakti Pat to increase revenue. Another ritual they provided was a blood initiation. Asahara would give 600 cc of blood shared among a number of his followers. If you remember, he actually told the Dalai Lama that he was going blind because he was giving his followers his blood.
In May 1988, Mahayana, Aum's magazine, published a story written by a housewife who had undergone blood initiation. At this time, Asahara would have blood initiations for around 30 people at a time, and it would cost $10,000 a seat. This housewife wrote in her article about her vivid dream in which she drank Asahara's sperm, and that dream was why she decided to undergo blood initiation. She went on the retreat on April 3rd, 1988, in a rented mountain lodge at the foot of the Fuji mountain. There, Asahara lay down and closed his eyes while his blood was being taken. Ishi Hisako gave each participant a wine glass, which would be filled with about 20 cc of blood. The housewife drank the blood and reported that the blood was not as fishy as she had expected, but it did taste a little salty. She thought that she would experience something, but ultimately she was unimpressed at first. Instead, she was told that if she took the blood of the guru without virtue, then it would be a problem. I find this really interesting, right? Just to sidestep this, is that the people who are facilitating this are already telling her that if you don't feel something change, if this doesn't work, it's your fault. It's not our fault, it's not Asahara's fault, it's you. You haven't been as devoted, and so, it's a problem, and the problem is you. So 2 days later, she notices a remarkable difference in her meditation. So while she's eating, walking, watching TV, anything, she just is constantly praying a mantra, and she feels like she has a lot stronger focus.
Our product they sold included the $1,000 US dollar cassette tape of Asahara chanting mantra, $1,000 US dollar for 200cc water, which contained Asahara's DNA, and $300 US dollar would buy a 1.5 liter plastic bottle of Miracle Pond. I don't know what they wanted to mean, the Miracle Pond, by Miracle Pond, but anyhow, they had some water. What is a Miracle Pond? I don't know. Which was Asahara's bath water. One man bought the Miracle Pond, and then he developed 40 degrees fever. Maybe they put some chemicals in the Miracle Pond. In the New Year's holiday between 1998 and 1990, they planned another resort termed Final Initiation, which attracted 430 people at $3,000 US.
Yeah, like how does he think of how to make money so easily? But anyways, while I was researching this, I got really interested in the idea of miracles and its effect on people. Atsushi, do you believe in miracles? Like levitation, speaking in tongues, resurrection, healing illnesses? Yeah. So, right. So, I don't really believe in miracles either. I believe in coincidences and energy, but like levitation or this sort of like blood initiation, like these sort of very fringe practices, I got really interested in it because I thought, why do so many people believe in these events? Like this housewife who drank Asahara's blood, or the people who underwent Shaktipat, or even Rocky, who in Me and the Cult Leader talks about how after he met Asahara, the image of Asahara remained burned into his mind's eye. So I wanted to know, what are these people experiencing and what are the repercussions? So I'm going to go through a couple of studies and then I want to get your sense of your opinion on them, okay? So I'm going to start with a 1979 study. I'm going to start with the 1979 study on the Unification Church, which compared a sample of 237 members to a control group and a comparison group of 205 people. In general, the study found that some people had, quote, neurotic distress, unquote, prior to joining, but that this distress was no longer present after joining the group. Having what the researcher called, quote, transcendental experiences was found to be a reason for feeling symptomatic relief, which is to say that people who joined the cult had anxiety, and that anxiety went away after they joined the cult. Experiencing some transcendental experience or miracle helped them lose that sense of anxiety. And I think separately, very interesting, is that he mentions that 90% of the 237 members he studied reported a prior commitment to other new religions. Okay, what's your take on this, Atsushi?
First question is, the Unification Church is also cult, right? No?
Unification Church, you can call it that.
Moonies, right? Basically, right? No?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing.
So they conducted. It's very funny. I thought, And also, but let's examine what they reported, okay? It's, so for some people have a pattern or tendency to join a cult one after another. That's what we observed among Asahara himself and his followers, right? And that is the pattern. That's migrating from A cult to B cult and C cult. And then at the end of the day, maybe one of those people are stuck with the horrible cult and they cannot move anymore, While they are, making a transition from A to B, that's okay, That's what I somehow feel. It's okay, meaning unless they are really ripped off, they're not stuck, right? With the one, not deeply committed yet, but they move it, right? And then they're not probably cut off the tie with the parents, and then also they are not giving up all the asset. They pay something, but they move on, right?
Right, so you're saying that because these people have a history with other religions, you're saying that, it's as long as it makes them happy, as long as they're not being sunk into these organizations and being fleeced completely, like you don't have a problem with it? Is that what you're trying to say?
Less problem, I would say. Less problem,
Always a problem, but less.
Less, yeah.
Yeah,
so it's
I think, Yeah. I think what I took away from this was that it's an effective method. It's an effective strategy to provide people with these transcendental experiences. And Aum does that with Shaktipat. It does that with blood initiation and with Miracle Pond. It really provides these experiences so people become hooked. People who, have experienced anxiety, like Araki experienced a lot of anxiety prior to joining the cult. And I don't know if I can say this, but it seems like he has a lot less anxiety after joining the cult. But, or at least a different anxiety, right? I think that this is reflected in Aum, at least. Like this practice of transcendental experience leading to less anxiety, meaning people are incentivized to stay. Yeah.
And that is a pattern of how the people who join that kind of cult,
Yeah. So the next study is a study of Harvard students who became religious, in this case Christian, after they started college. The study found that people had more self-esteem and improved relationships after joining this organization, and that many of them seemed to be interested in filling a spiritual void left by an absence of religious instruction during their early years. Both this and the earlier study are not extraordinarily hard on cults. The one with the Harvard students in particular were researching students who joined a religious organization that did not encourage them to break familial ties or, donate immense amount of money, and therefore it didn't really qualify as a cult, just a new religion. What do you think of that?
As long as they help, meaning those groups or religious group help people to provide better self-esteem and a good relationship, that is okay. It's good religion, right? Don't you think? That is the good religion must have a some sort of, how can I say, function. They perform. Right?
Yeah, I think good or bad, like religions. I think religious organizations in universities are preying on these kids who, for the first time ever, are away from home. They're starting to go into adulthood. They might have questions, and they might not have a community. And religion provides an instant community. And so very much the same way Aum did, they are targeting weak people. And there's a reason why Aum recruits on campuses and does so well recruiting on campuses. So I think all of these religious organizations, whether you term them good or bad, are still aware that university students at the ripe age of 18, 19 are very susceptible. They're trying to figure out what the world means, and if you give them God or Asahara or anything, they will listen to you, or there's a higher chance that they will listen to you.
Yeah, when I joined the college, many group approached me too, Some are related to unification, some are political, like a left wing, like a group. Many approached many freshmen, that's how they recruit people. That, as you say, exactly what Aum did, but now it is banned because of the Aum things.
I mean, as far as we know.
Yeah, as far as we know, that's very true. Yes, on the surface at least, yes.
Okay, so the last study I looked at is much harsher on cults, and this is maybe because they were talking to people who were ex-members, and about 75% of those people were forced to leave the cult. And this is an issue I really want to talk about in a future episode, because in Japan in particular, I've read a lot of stories of families reacting to their family members joining cults, and sometimes these families can kidnap and lock up individuals who have joined cults. And the police rarely get involved in these situations because they view it as first and foremost a family matter, and second, because cults have a really bad name in Japan, understandably, that the family are protecting this person from an evil cult. So this is a really interesting issue I want to get into another date. But you can understand why, if someone is in that situation who is going through deprogramming very forcibly, that they could have negative impressions of cults. And so, this study is very negative on cults. Okay, so this is what she found. This is what the researcher found. She found that cults use intense social and psychological pressures to induce and maintain membership. In a separate study, they also talk about how difficult it is to get someone out of a cult if they've been committed for more than 12 months. Back to the study, the ex-members she talked to also said that they had depression, indecisiveness, loneliness, uncritical passivity, blurring of mental activity, and experiencing difficulties in explaining what they did during their time in a cult, and having a hard time coming to terms with having been in a cult. And the takeaway from this research is that, quote, if cult life is hellish, life after is worse.
It's like I think that once I had a conversation with my friend about the Aum people in general, and I explained that they are in the pyramid, but the pyramid is upside down. So they have to go down, down, down. That's the only way they can be in a better position. If they leave the cult, they will experience the hellish life, right? Under the pressure from the society, right? So it is very pretty hard for them. So that's why they have no place to go, Yeah, I think so. And also, I don't think Japan has a very good religious groups or culture. The religious group help people in trouble like this. Well, one is the one.
Oh, you mean there's not very good social services?
Yeah, by the I don't know how I can tell it is legitimate or not, right? But legitimate religious group, okay, who should accept those people who left the cult, right? And help them to have a better life, not hellish life. Also, to protect them from the bad cult, That's what, in Japan, the religion is so, how can I say, in socially so weak, not so very strong. So that's why, I don't know, maybe other religions like Soka Gakkai, Agonshu, there are some strong religions, but, in...
What do you mean by strong? Do you mean they're stricter? Do you mean it's stricter?
Restrictive, yeah. Stricter, yeah. In some actions specifically, right? You have to do this. Japanese Buddhism is, in a sense, no restriction at all, right? So maybe only Japanese Buddhism, but speaking of a general Japanese Buddhism sect, many sects are just doing funerals. They don't care anything, right?
Yeah, or even like what you were saying, what you did yesterday, right?
Right.
You had a monk, right? Come to your house.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
for
so
10
means
minutes.
prayer, right? And
Yeah,
then I
very
give
fast,
some
need to
money,
get it done.
and then and I offer some tea, and I had that too much tea. I know he visited so many places already, right? Collects money, and that is what the Japanese.
You know at sushi, who else provides a 10-minute service?
Who?
Asahara. You should get a Shakti pot 10 minutes.
But he works hard on Shakti Pat,
Yeah.
My
but how about your
Buddhist
monk?
monk, I wouldn't say he's lazy, but he tries to.
But it's once a year.
Yeah, efficient,
Be careful at
And,
sushi.
I
He'll never
know.
come back if he hears you.
Cause why? Because I spend a year at the temple of the same sect. I know the prayer sound. I can tell, right? What kind of prayer, right? I cannot do it, but I cannot chant it, but I can tell, right? He came up with a very efficient version. 21st times, he asked me to repeat the same very short mantra, and then that's it. Okay, let's go, right? So
Very
sort of.
efficient.
Yes, he's very polite, of course, but sounded like he has a very efficient way. Even he does it once in a year, he has that efficiency, right? So, if you are coming from that religious background, many kind of religious background in Japan, of course, but Buddhism community service is not very supportive for the people who suffer from those things.
But it's also, I think that's an interesting point because it's also a very competitive society, right? And when you're in a religious organization, the competition is so, it's not like if you get a promotion, the next person can't get a promotion. Unlike in a company, right? There can only be so many people at the top. But in a religious institution, you can always go up without it being detrimental to anyone else. And you don't have to wait for people to leave or die or retire to get senior positions, right? And so it's a competitive environment, but you're all in it together.
Competitive environment within the cult.
Yeah, but you're all in it together, right? Like
it's
if
open,
I,
yeah,
you know,
it's
if
open.
we were
There is
working in
chance,
a company and if we were working in a company and we were both at the same level and we were both had the same position, and then one position opened up more senior than us, then I would be competing with you for that position. But in something like Aum, it's not like that, right? You guys can both of these people, imaginary people, can, you know, do the Shaktipat, do the practice or whatever, and both ascend together. It's not competitive against each other. It's competitive against yourself with everyone else. So it gives these people a sense of community.
But many people who came to join the Omu is who were mostly the losers in the Japanese in competition within Japanese community, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's why they came.
And so, but the other thing though is, I mean, that's a really good point, right? Because we can go back to Nishiyama, and Nishiyama talks about how Asahara should have been targeting the weak, and so that's what happened, right? Asahara is targeting the weak, and the weak are the most susceptible to these miracles because they're the most anxious, right?
Right. But you see, the interesting is though, that's actually what the Nishiyama told is the truth about any business, you know?
Yeah.
Business is
definitely.
not business is not the place where you want to prove how smart you are. The business is to make money, right?
Yeah, I mean, even if you were like running a gym, right? You are trying to target not the people you would imagine who are like the most fat. No, you're targeting the most insecure, the weakest in terms of this scenario, right?
Yes, it's not a very respectable way of doing or thinking, but that's the truth about ordinary business, you know?
Yeah, business, multi-level marketing, anything, any sort of like, you know, low-hanging fruit. And I think, like, you know, at this point, Aum has gotten pretty corporate and it's gotten pretty efficient. And we're going to see them expand on this later and how that changes the organization. But at this point in time, Asahara and his core group are actually not practicing yoga as much, and they're more running it like a corporation.
Right. The high ranking members, yeah.
And
less devoted to the yoga by itself. But they do some, as far as I know, they still keep doing it though. Not forgetting everything. Yeah, you know, they do it, and after they have the very big facility at the foot of Mount Fuji, they still keep doing it. But it is more driven by money. It is more driven by business as a corporation.
Yeah, so we're going to get into this in the next episode when we're going to talk more about their continual campaign to become a religious organization and the sort of things they do to make that happen.
So please listen and subscribe wherever you listen. Review and rating helps us other people find us. Thank you for listening. Reach out to us on Twitter at before after Omu.
Thank you.